Welcome to the Stress Free Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Block. As always, I want to inspire, entertain, and educate you on the best tools and technologies out there. My goal is to help make your practice and career more profitable, efficient, and most importantly, more enjoyable. And check out all of my nonfiction and children's books on Amazon. And check out the stressfreedentist.com for any upcoming events. And if you're feeling you're a dental professional that's burnt out, or you just feel stuck or want to get to that next level, visit the International Academy of Dental Life Coaches or www.iadlc.com, and we'll get you matched up with a life coach that understands dentistry. I also wanted to thank our amazing sponsor, Equa Marketing. They have helped me and my practice over the years to improve with SEO and website performance. And to find out how you can make your practice dominate in your area, go to www.equa.com/MSMSFD to book your complimentary meeting. Again, that's www.ekwa.com/MSMSFD. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode. And I am joined by Kirk Teachout today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Eric. Thanks for having me.
And Kirk, where are you zooming in from today?
So I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, a little outside of it.
Gotcha.
So
Is
yeah,
that where you're from?
for Northeast Arkansas primarily, but we came over here when my wife went to dental school because Arkansas doesn't have a dental school. So they pay for more seats at Memphis to allow more Arkansas students in.
Nice. And is that how you got into dentistry? Is because your wife is a dentist?
Yeah, well, yes, it's not because I just wanted to just get into the dental field. And I was talking to my wife not too long ago. It's kind of surprising. You never know where you're going to end up. But when you find something you're passionate about, you double down and really enjoy it. And that's kind of how I've gotten to this point. It's just through my wife. She wanted to buy a practice after she associated for a couple years, and she was like, "Look, will you help me? Because I'm from the music industry, so." Learning about marketing, learning about creating raving fans, and to something that's so subjective that only I love, and I'm trying to convince people to love it. Now I'm in dentistry, everybody needs it, so it's super easy to use the same tactics from the music industry to be able to help people with their health, which is really cool.
That is super cool. I don't know if I've ever heard that where you're actually tying the music industry into dentistry. So I definitely want to ask you about that a little bit more. But first, tell me about what you do, how you help dentists, and all about fourth quarter coaching.
Yeah. So early on in our practice, we were working 4 days a week when we first bought it, 6 months after COVID hit. And so we had that 2 month layover where, we couldn't do anything. And it really had us setting down, thinking about the things that we wanted to do and how are we going to do what we actually want to do. Right. So when we came back, we knew a couple doctors who had worked 3 or 3.5 days a week. We're like, okay, well, if they can do it, then we can do it. We just need to figure out how. So when we came back from COVID, we came back at 3.5 days a week. We asked the team specifically, like, hey, if we did this, would you guys be okay with this? Because we're not increasing pay, but we're cutting the hours. They're like, yeah, yeah, because they loved having time off. So we did that. We came back 3.5 days a week, and the culture increased so much to where it was a night and day difference just by cutting out an afternoon on a Thursday. And then when my wife had her maternity leave about 6 to 8 months later, we came back 6 weeks after we had the baby at 3 days a week. So the team's still there that half day on Thursday, but my wife was only there for 3 days. And we saw another jump in our production and our collections and a night and day difference. To be able to go grocery shopping, run the errands that you need to on a Thursday instead of a Saturday and wasting off your day off to just try to get things done around the house was really nice for her mental health, one, but also just to be able to relax, right? Because I know like all the dentists that are listening to this, when they go home, it's almost impossible to turn it off. You think about what did you do well that day, maybe, but mostly what didn't go right, right? Because dentists are so problem oriented because they're always looking for problems versus solution oriented. And so to be able to be off more than we were at the office really allowed her to, even if it was a day where she was still thinking about the office, she kind of got off of that mindset by the end of the time off before going back and being re-energized, just like when you go on a vacation, right? So like when you go on a vacation, maybe the first couple of days you're still thinking about work, you're thinking about stuff around the house, but afterwards you get into a groove and you're like, okay, you just start thinking about other things, about being in the moment. So that's what we saw was, with fourth quarter coaching, when we brought doctors into our practice when she was on maternity leave, they weren't doing more than $6,000 a day. And the one doctor that filled in temporarily was doing $15,000 days every day at our office and was asking me specifically when she left for her practice. She was like, can you send me all this? I was like, sure. Yeah, here's the processes. Here's the programs we use. Here's the templates that we use. And she was like, that is awesome. Because she was like, I've never been able to do this in my whole office. And so now she's thriving. I was like, okay, we have something special here. So how can I duplicate this and empower other doctors and practice owners to be able to work 3 days a week and have a seven-figure practice like we have with one doctor? And that's really just so many times on Instagram which is where I primarily am, just asking doctors like, okay, where are you at? Like, this is where I'm at. Okay, where do you want to be? Like, I want to be here. Like, okay, well, how do you do that? I don't know. Well, let me help. Because I just give free advice, and obviously I do get paid for coaching too, but I just want to help and provide value. But that's kind of like how fourth quarter coaching came about, was just to be able to help doctors do what we do and have the lifestyle that we do, where our business revolves around our lifestyle versus us having to revolve our lifestyle around the business.
So just to back up a little bit, you had a temporary dentist there or an associate that was just crushing it,
Yeah,
and then they left, and they weren't having the success that they were having under your systems and processes, and they wanted to figure out, what the secret sauce was. And you said you sent them some templates, systems, and processes. Can you explain what those are and how you help that dentist?
sure. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the schedule. So, and I mean, I even had a meeting with our front desk yesterday afternoon after work about how we can tweak the schedule again, because now we do have an associate outside of my wife. It's like, okay, well, what worked with one doc doesn't necessarily work with two docs. So we're constantly looking at the schedule, like, okay, how can we make this more efficient? How can we, see the patients, not run them through a mill, but be able to still hit our goals. So it really came down to seeing how fast and what procedure makeup that doctor does, and then just kind of creating a block schedule that makes sense. But it's not always going to be those specific things, right? Not every patient coming through hygiene or emergencies is going to need a crown. Not every single one is going to need fillings. Not every single one's going to need an extraction or a partial. So we have parameters that I sent her specifically for the front desk. Like, she knows what to schedule and where to schedule it based off of our time, because we dictate our schedule. We don't allow patients to dictate our schedule. And their parameters are like, okay, well, 2 days out, if there's something not scheduled in that block, then we're going to put an emergency there or an extraction there, or something that needs to go in there that still gets us to the goal, but it's not necessarily a crown or three fillings or something like that. So it's not cookie cutter. But what I did was go with her, or through that with her, on what does her schedule look like. And then also creating a goal, because I hear this a lot. It's like, I don't know how to create goals, right? And I'm like, okay, well, you know, I like to create goals based off of where my payroll is at 15 to 20%. So we create all of our production goals and collection goals based off of that, which leads to the bonus system that we also have. But, I know for easy numbers, right, that if my payroll is at 20% at $10,000, I'm trying to get to 15%. But at 20%, I'm going to start bonusing. I'm going to make sure that they can increase their pay, but also incentivize them to essentially take ownership in their role, and also in ownership in the practice by doing that. Because if we work as a team and they're doing their job well, which they always do when they're incentivized even more than just a paycheck, then now they're doing the things and being proactive in their role versus being reactive, um, and allowing them to do that is very important, because if I was always having to look for certain things in every single patient, then I couldn't do everything that we do. So you have to be able to delegate. And so that's kind of what, setting those goals to where it empowers them for that responsibility allows us to hit those goals a lot more consistently. Um, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, actually, can you go into a little further about your bonus system? How do you
Yeah,
typically structure the bonus system?
sure. So simple is key, right? A lot of docs have very complex schedules. It's algorithm or complex bonus systems. It's algorithmic, and even the team can't figure it out. A lot of times the doctor can't figure it out. And so they say they have a bonus system. And when they may or may not hit it, they may pay it out, they may not, and their team gets upset about it. So what we do is we keep it very streamlined and simple. I don't pay anybody more or less based off of what position they're in.
Hmm.
So, like, hygiene doesn't get paid more, front desk doesn't get paid more. Everybody gets paid the same across the board. So, what I did was we got a little spinny wheel that looks like Wheel of Fortune, and I have a 25, 50, 75, and $100 value all around the board. And for easy numbers, right? Payroll, if it's at 20% at 10,000, then when we hit $10,000 of production, then they get to spend the next morning at the morning huddle. And so they're constantly looking at that number. It's like, okay, we're at $9,000. Who needs a pan? Who's eligible for x-rays? Who's eligible for fluoride? Who needs sealants? Where can we add on a partial that somebody was interested in 6 months ago? So they're being proactive in that to try to hit that number. And then if we consistently hit that number, then it's going to lead into our collections, right? So I've had a monthly goal, and a lot of times the problem with that is they sandbag you when you get to the end of the month because you're at goal, and then they want to hit the goal next month. So they're going to start putting everything on the next month. Or you're not going to hit it, and so they start sandbagging you and they start putting everything on the next month so they can hit it on the next month. So I like to focus daily, to where they get that value, right? And if they hit that $10,000 the next morning when they spin, if they spin a 50, every single person on the team gets a 50. Everybody gets $50 across the board because it's a team effort. So the front desk schedules efficiently, the hygienist, co-diagnosis, gets everything ready for the doctor to come in, confirm, yes, this is what's going on, closes the treatment, goes back to the front, collects the money for it, and goes out. So everybody's working as a team. But then it leads into that monthly goal. So I do have a monthly collection goal as well, where they bonus. So once again, for easy numbers, if they hit that daily goal consistently, it's going to lead into a collection goal at the end of the month. So if we hit $100,000 in collections, anything above that, I'm going to give them 10% across the board. Split, say you have 5 people, split 5 ways. So if we do 130,000 that month, then I'm going to take $3,000, which is 10% of the difference of that 30,000, and I'm going to split it 5 ways. So everybody's going to get an extra, $400 or $500 on their paycheck in addition to that daily bonus. So even though I may pay our people a little less than industry standard, they actually get paid $5 or $6 more than industry standard because we're working harder, we're getting bonus, and we're being consistent. And that's where a lot of docs, I feel like, really lack, is they think like, okay, I'm going to slam this schedule today and I'm going to do $20,000 today, but then the next day is at $3,000. But if you schedule that out consistently to where it's $10,000 a day, you're going to outpace everybody because that $20,000 was mentally too tough, physically too tough. And then once again, that $3,000 day, you feel defeated because you were only at $3,000 and you still did 20 fillings. But having that consistency is key.
That's great, man. Great advice there. Now, what are you seeing out there? What do you think is stressing out dentists the most these days?
I would say lack of leadership and the business side. right? So that's the number one question I get from associates and also dental students is what do I need to do to get prepared for practice ownership? I'm like, work on your leadership skills, read books, listen to podcasts, because when you're going to have the clinical side down, right? You're going to get your speed up, you're going to be fine. You've spent a lot of money on it and a lot of time. But something you haven't worked on is your leadership. Because when you get into that setting, even as an associate, you need to be able to lead that team. Whether they're hygienists, whether they're assistants, whether they're front desk, you still need to be able to lead people and them respect you. Not just be like, I'm a doctor and you're going to respect me. And what I say goes, right? So if you can allow yourself to grow in leadership, you're going to be well ahead of the curve. But then also learning the business side, right? A lot of docs don't want to learn the business side, and that's fine. Then you need to hire somebody who is okay with learning the business side and understanding it, whether it's marketing, whether it's looking at your numbers, your KPIs every single month or every single day, week, however often you look at them, but understanding how to not only manage that team, but also manage the business itself. Because it's one thing to, once again, do the clinical side and hit production goals. But if you don't know why on the business side and you don't know where the leaks are. So like that's something that when we hired our first dental coach that, we're like, okay, well, we're hitting $65,000 a month, right? We're like, okay, well, how do we get to that next level? And he gave us 5 very simple things. And that next month, we grew by 56% in collections. We're like, why didn't we know that? Like, it was so simple, those few things. And it's because you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know that business side and those small things that you can tweak and just really plug up those leaks to optimize the practice, then you don't know. And you'll never do that unless you just happen to fall on it. So that's something I love to do. It's just like audit people, and because I love the business side since I'm not a dentist, and I love seeing those leaks and just giving people plugs to plug it up, so that way they can optimize their practice for little to no extra effort, which is so fun.
Yeah, I think you really nailed it with the leadership. I struggle every day being a leader, and make no mistake, as a dentist, whether you're an associate or an owner, you are a leader. And uh, you know, you don't need to take that course on the 17th generation of bonding or cement. Take a course on leadership, on
Yeah.
business, how to talk to patients, how to close cases, how to talk to staff. I mean, you could be the best clinician in the world with the most amazing technology, but if you can't lead and you can't close cases, it's all for naught. So I think that is great advice. Um, all right, my man, you've given so many great nuggets, but I want to end off with two final questions. Number one is, how do we find out more about what you're up to? And number two, what advice would you give to the young dentists out there?
Okay. So one, you can find me on Instagram at Kirk Teachout, or email me, Kirk at fourthquartercoaching.com. I'm sure you'll have it in the notes. But advice I would give to young docs out there is, as isolating as dentistry may feel, your situation is not unique. What you're going through, a lot of other people are going through. So put yourself out there. Really try to build a community of other doctors around you that you can talk to, because we tend to isolate ourselves in dentistry when we have our own practice, or even if you're an associate. Try to find friends and find communities of other doctors that are on your same level or where you want to be. So that way they can help guide you. You guys can vent together. And I'm not saying, just pile up the pity, but I am saying that you're not alone in the problems that you're going through, whether it be team issues, whether it be business issues, practice issues, all sorts of stuff. And that's something that I'm trying to change, is create that community, uh, because it is very isolating sometimes, and we do it to ourselves. So try to reach out and create a community around you, and put yourself out there.
Great stuff. Again, Kirk Teachout. Such a great episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
Thanks again for listening to the Stress Free Dentist podcast. And don't hesitate to get in touch with me at info@thestressfreedentist.com. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Until the next episode, I'm Dr. Eric Block, the Stress Free Dentist.